I low-key want to start this video with, you don't understand that I'm standing on business, but like, it's not that serious. I'm just happy that I am talking about books, and as you can tell by the title, we are talking about my favorite books of all time. Let's make it a part one because I have more books that I count as my favorites that I want to talk about. And I have been online talking about books for almost 5 years now. So if you have known me for a while, you actually know most of the books, which is kind of the point. They are my favorites. So without any further ado, let's start with them. I want to start with this one, Stoner by John Williams. This book wrecked me in the quietest way possible. This book doesn't scream, it's barely a whisper, but the stillness, it haunts. It's gonna punch you in your guts, and yeah, it's gonna linger. It's about a man, he's a professor, and he's living a fairly ordinary life, and somehow that's the story. It's about his ordinariness, his unnoticed pain, and these are things feel more tragic than anything I've ever read. Not because the pain is huge, but because you can see parts of you within these pages. It's the sort of book that will make you ponder on the fact that we let so many things pass us by because that's life. Life is not a movie, it's not revolving around you, everything is not happening for you all the time. You are actively running towards your dream, you're actively working towards them, but it's life, you know. Things really don't go your way most of the time, and that's just something you have to make peace with. My small brain couldn't grasp the fact that something so small could hurt me the way it did, honestly. This is the type of book that will make you realize that every story, no matter how big or small, no matter if that story has been narrated by multiple different people, it matters because we have so many people on this planet, and honestly, it's hard to do things that are original. So you just have to understand that you have to do your version of things, you have to do your take on certain things and not feel embarrassed or cringe about it. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not going to spoil any of the books. I'm just going to talk about the plot a little bit and talk about my feeling because I feel that's how I do my book reviews, and that's how I want to do this video, honestly. Take a shot every time I use the word honestly, and you will be drunk by the end of this video. The next book is probably my most annotated book, and this book holds a very special place in my heart. And someday when I am rich, like I have shit ton of money, I need a first edition of this book. There was a time when I was talking about this book almost every other week, and it got to a point where people started saying, hey, it's not even that good. Just shut the fuck up. And I actually took their words and I shut the fuck up. And that's the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life because this is my most favorite book. And this is the book I stopped talking about because I feel like people don't really like it. But like, let's talk about it. It's Willett by Charlotte Brontë, and it's the best book I have ever read. I mean, there's loneliness and there's Lucy Snow, our main character. The book isn't just gothic in tone, it's gothic in soul. It's about a woman who feels invisible in this world, who watches life from afar, who wants to be loved but refuses to beg for it. And I kid you not, I have never related to a character more than Lucy Snow. The prose is beautiful and haunting. The silences in this book are louder than words, which says a lot. It's about a woman teaching herself how to survive in a world where no one is watching her, no one is there to just hold her if she falls, and it's haunting because it's so familiar. Reading this book feels like looking into a mirror that doesn't show your face but show all your ache. And I mean, I remember I've read this book 6 or 7 times. This is the book when I get filthy rich. I want the first edition of this book because I'm pretty sure the first edition costs like thousands of dollars. I might never be able to get the first edition, but a fool can only dream. So the plot of this book revolves around Lucy Snow, and when you read the book, you will realize that Charlotte Brontë was a genius because she gave Lucy Snow the name Snow because she's cold like winter, and hence the name Snow. And then you meet someone in the plot who is her summer, and they just go together. It's so sweet, honestly. I'm not going to spoil anything, don't worry about that. So the plot follows Lucy. The story starts with her losing her entire family in some storm. We don't really get to know more about it, but we just know it's a shipwreck. If you just read the book, you will realize that. And then she was sent to this orphanage, and she spent her life over there, and she was always the odd one out in the pile. I feel like the main reason I love this book with such intensity is because it's about choosing solitude when connections feel too dangerous. It's about building walls and not knowing how to tear them down when you find some softness. Because when you do find softness, it's so fragile that you're even scared to breathe. It's weird, but I have such a special place for this book. Yeah, if you haven't read this book, read this one. This is the book that introduced me to Charlotte Bronte. This is the book that made me fall in love with her. And I mean, I stopped talking about this book for obvious reasons. Most people don't like the book because it's so slow, and I mean, nothing much happens throughout the book, but so much happens if you look closer. Also, not trying to spoil anything, but a lot of people also think that this is Charlotte Bronte's autobiography, that she is Lucy Snow. Eugene Onegin by Alexander Pushkin. This book is about timing, about missed chances, about saying too much too late and not saying enough when it actually mattered. It's a novel in verse, which means it's written in this poetry format. Every chapter is a poetry, and it was the first ever book I read in this format, which makes it extra special, I guess. It reads like someone writing letters they will never sing. There's sharpness, there's this wry elegance, and underneath all of that is this tremendous pain and heartbreak that almost feels holy. If you have ever wanted someone and watched that relationship crumble in front of your eyes, this book is going to ache. It's about this dude. He is rich, he's charming, he has girls around him, and then when the love of his life just goes to him and says, "Hey, I'm in love with you," he goes, "Everyone is in love with me, dude. What's so special about you?" And then years later, when she has fallen out of love, I mean, you cannot fall out of love, but she has just accepted that they were not meant to be. And yes, while she still loved him, she now have accepted and moved on. Meanwhile, this dude is now stuck, and he goes back and he's like, "Dude, you're the love of my life." And the girl is like, "Dude, I have moved on." Throughout this book, you will see pieces of yourself in every hesitation, every mistake, every almost love. And that's the beauty of this book. It's about knowing what you want too late and having to live with that knowledge. And that's heavy, and that's this book. Adelaide by Genevieve. This book is messy. In a way, heartbreaks are messy. It's raw and real and brutal and heartbreaking. It's going to make you spiral. It's about loving someone who doesn't have the emotional vocabulary and capacity to love you back. They keep on giving you crumbs, and you keep on feeding like it's a feast. Because having something on your plate is better than having nothing, and you think you deserve crumbs and not the entire feast. Adelaide feels like a part of you that keeps on refreshing their chat every single second because you are waiting for them, because you love pretending that almost is enough. I read this book last year, and when I read this book, I was in Adelaide's shoes. I was madly in love. I won't call it love, more like infatuation, because it was one way. But I was infatuated with this one person who was just giving me crumbs, and I was happy because yes, that's what I deserve. And then I read this book. My best friend actually recommended me this, and I remember finishing this and texting her, and I was like, "Wait, is he like Rory, the main male character of this book?" And she was like, "No, you're just overthinking." And I mean, I'm not going to show you everything, but I made like an entire, I'm not going to show you anything, but this is me doing a journal entry in a book because I was trying to make connections, draw the pattern. And then I called her back and I was like, no, he is just giving me crumbs and I'm settling for that. And my best friend was like, yeah, you at least see it now. I'm happy for you. And I feel that's the reason why this is my favorite book of all time. Because I think next time I fall in love with someone, I will crawl back to this book and just draw lines, make the patterns, see if it's love, infatuation, or just him giving me crumbs. And I feel that's the beauty of books and media, that you get to decide what you resonate with, what feels more like you, what you connect with. And I mean, when I see people talk about favorites and then I see other people complaining about the books or media they think are their favorites, and people in the comments are like, oh, it's not even that good. It's not that serious. You are allowed to like a book because you read it in a phase when you needed that book. It doesn't have to be booker worthy. It doesn't have to be Oscar worthy. It just have to connect with your soul. It just have to leave a mark on you. And that's the definition of a good book. Normal People by Rooney. If you thought this book is not going to be a part of this video, you're mistaken, and you clearly do not know me. And I mean, I'm offended, but that's okay. This book is emotionally feral. Mary and Connell, they are my babies, okay? They don't just fall in love, they orbit around each other. They have this gravitational pull. They are like Earth and Moon. They are supposed to be around each other, but they're never meant to be together, because if they try to, it's just gonna be collision and destruction and everything's gonna fall apart. That's the energy between them. Their whole dynamic is rooted in miscommunication and misalignment, and that's the part I love about this book. And I mean, a lot of people, I read the reviews and they're like, oh, just lots of miscommunication. Two high schoolers shouldn't have that much miscommunication going on. Work on clear communication. And I'm like, that's the point of this book. It's about miscommunication and how two people who can be in love with each other cannot be around each other but cannot stay away from each other at the same time. It's wild and it's weird, and that's the point. Rooney writes intimacy in negative space, in what's unsaid, what's implied, the pauses between replies. It's a story about two people trying to find themselves, but also about their bond at the same time. It's the kind of book that makes you want to forgive the worst parts of you, the parts you think are flawed, and the parts that make you you. Because it shows you how being flawed, scared, and loving a person can be all at once. And that's powerful. Oh, my jaw hurts now. Beautiful World Where Are You by Rooney. I feel this is my second most annotated book. I don't really know, maybe the tabs are sticking out, I don't really know. But this is Rooney at her most cerebral, at her most achingly lonely-esque writing sort of thing. It's slower than most of her books, less plot, more introspection. They think more than they act, but when they do act, there's a meaning behind it. Alice and Eileen are both scared of being too much, or not enough, or both, depending on the day. Their emails are these desperate flares of, is anyone else feeling this way as well? The love stories in here are quieter, more tender. They don't crash, they bloom. If Normal People was about being in love, Beautiful World Where You is about choosing love in a cynical world with broken brain and bruised hearts. This book definitely reads like an essay, so it's not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, when I read this book for the first time, I hated it. And then I saw everyone talk about it, and I thought, okay, let me just read it again. And I read it, and second time was the charm. I immediately fell in love with it. I actually cried while reading this book, which doesn't happen often. I'm not a crier, or I wasn't back in the day. I am a crier now. But I mean, these two definitely are fighting for the first spot. If this one has first one, this one definitely, they share the first spot. It's just like this, and then here comes the second spot or something. That's like that. Septology by Jan Fosse. You don't read Septology, you surrender to it. It's hypnotic. It's 800 pages worth of one long sentence. It's a monologue, it's hypnotic, it's looping, it's gonna make you spiral. It's like thoughts unspooling at the edge of consciousness. It's meditative, thought provoking, and yet it pulses with dread. It's about a painter in Norway who's contemplating his life, his choices, his regrets. But really, it's about that one question that haunts all of us. Was I a good person? Did I live right? Did I actually do the life thing the way it's meant to be done? There's a kind of sacred silence in this book. It feels like you're standing in front of a temple or a church or a mosque. It just has this energy that you gravitate towards that almost feels meditative, that almost calms you down, but also makes you spiral and think and just reflect on life. If you have ever found yourself stuck between who you are and who you want it to be, this book will feel like a reckoning. And yeah, it's chunky, and I am scared of big books, but this one has all my heart. It took me 3 months to actually make it through this book, but I mean, there's a different version of this book that comes in 3 different parts, and I highly recommend you getting that version because this one is hard to carry and it's definitely more daunting to read. So if you ever plan on reading this book, just get the 3 different versions, the 3 different part version of this book. The Wet Starter by Barbara Comyns. This one sneaks up on you. It starts off grim, an abusive father, a girl who is barely surviving, then it slips into this surreal element with no warning. But the magic here doesn't soften the horror, it amplifies it. Alice's pain is too quiet to scream, so she floats, actually. Barbara Cummins has this genius way of writing grotesque like it's just another Tuesday for her. Her prose has this childlike element, but it's also chilling, and I feel that makes the darkness hit harder because you don't expect it. This isn't fantasy, it's fairy tale born from trauma. You don't read it, you absorb it, and then you dream about it for the rest of your life. Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. This book isn't trying to be profound, it's not complicated, and that is what makes it so dangerous because it just sneaks past your defenses. It's not trying to do anything, but it's also trying to reach you at the same time. It's about an old professor who is dying of ALS and his former student who decides to reconnect with him, and they decide that they are going to meet and talk every Tuesday, and they talk about love, life, regrets, friendships, family, everything you can think of. It's about how we chase the wrong things, how we don't feel grief because we think that's going to show our vulnerabilities. It's about so many things. This book feels so tender and profound and intentional. Morrie talks so gently. It's like talking to our grandparents, honestly. What makes this book special is the person who's giving you all this wisdom is not trying to be smart about it. He's not saying, oh, I am old and that's why you should hear to me. He is saying, hey, listen, I think I have lived life, and I think the purpose of life is to live intentionally, to not chase things that are not going to matter in the longer term in your life. It's about family, it's about bonding, it's about loving, it's about letting people know that you love them, it's about listening to other people. It's about listening more than speaking. It's about thinking before you speak. It's about so many things that we already know we should do, but we don't because, I mean, we are reckless. And he just says that, hey, it's okay to be reckless, but you also have to be intentional because there is going to come a time where you're going to look back and you're going to reflect and you're going to regret. And look, I'm dying, so I can tell you that you are going to do all those things, and I can just hold your hand and say that, hey, change this particular habit, feel deeply, tell people you love them, tell people things you don't like about them. The fact that he's dying and yet he has this emotional capability to listen to other people's problem, he's not making everything about him, he's never making things about him, he's always trying to be present when someone else is talking, makes this book so much special. It's the kind of book that I will talk about again and again and again, that I will go back to over and over again. And it's so special. I don't know, I have talked about this book so many times in the past few weeks already that I don't think I have to yap more about it. But if you haven't read this book, you should. You should. I can't even speak now. But yeah, that's Tuesdays with Morrie. Let's move on to the next book. We have one, two, three. Three more to go. We have made lots of, actually, four more to go. Yeah, we have made some progress though. Happy Place by Emily Henry. This book made it to this list because it hurts, because it's real in the way you don't expect rom-coms to feel. The plot is around two exes who are still pretending to be together because they are on the summer vacation with their friend group. They share the same group of friends. And yeah, that's the banter. And of course, it's a slow burn, and you are going to get a lot of back and forth. But it's a different sort of grief that Emily writes. It's grief in slow motion. It's heartbreak that isn't loud, it's resigned. It's about people who are still in love, but they also think that they shouldn't be because that's the way it should be, if that makes sense. But it's also about friends. It's also about friendships and the bond you share with the people you have spent a good chunk of your life with. And the fact that you grow up and your life changes and no longer have lives that gravitate towards each other. Your college friends, yes, you had your life around each other when you were in dorms together, when you were attending classes together, but then you grow up, you get different jobs, and suddenly you have different lives. Yes, you fill in the gaps. Yes, you just talk about what's going on, but it's not the same because after you grow up, your friends are going to have a different life, and their life is no longer gonna revolve around you or even crash with your life. And yeah, this book is more about that. This book has a special place in my heart because it celebrates friendships in a way they should be celebrated. This book is more about female friendships for me and less about the love story. And I mean, that's weird, but yeah, that's the reason this book is here, because I read it with a girlfriend, my best friend, and the girlfriends and the bond they have in this book. It reminds me so much of the bond I share with her. And she is the best thing to have ever happened in my life. She is the best person. And again, like I said, favorites are not supposed to make sense. They are supposed to make sense to me. But if they don't make sense to you, that's totally okay. This book is not just about the two exes and whether they get back together, but about choosing yourself, even if that means you have to lose a version of yourself that loved them. And yeah, that's this book. Six of Claw by Leigh Bardugo. This was the first ever fantasy I read in my life. I read this in 2020, and this was the first book I actually had the, yeah, this is the edition I read from. It's all broken and messy and it's falling apart, which is wild and weird, but yeah. This is the book that introduced me to fantasy and to Grisha Verse specifically. I am such a huge fan of Grisha Verse. If there's a fantasy book I love with all my heart, it's this entire Grisha Verse book. I mean, this is a character study disguised as a fantasy and heist. Kaz, Inage, Jesper, Nina, Matthias, they're all broken emotionally talking, they're broken. On paper, it's about a gang of outcasts pulling an impossible heist, but honestly, it's about grief, resilience, and redemption, and wanting something more than vengeance, even when you're convinced that's all you deserve. I mean, it's so much more than just a fantasy for me, and maybe I'm just stupid because I like feeling things too deeply. But yeah, if you like a good heist book, if you want to dip your toes into fantasy and you just want a sprinkle of slow burn, you don't want romantasy, you just want a good fantasy, this is the book. Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. A lot of people call this the female version of American Psycho. I don't really agree with that because it's so much better than American Psycho. I love me a good female unhinged character. Irina is just the girl I want to be. I don't actually want to be like her, but it would be amazing if I was as unhinged as her, honestly. So when I say unhinged, she is not unhinged in a funny girl boss chaos way. She's unhinged in the rotting from within way. She's wild, she's magnetic, she's someone you can't look away from. This isn't a story about redemption. It's about what happens when a woman refuses to be palatable. It's about when she refuses to be nice, to be digestible. You get this. This is the type of horror I actually love. She is a photographer. She takes explicit photos of men, which like absolutely cool. Love it for her. And if you mess with her, she is going to chop you up and smash bottles on your head and just watch the blood flow and have the time of her life, because yeah, that's cool. That's not me saying that's cool, it's the vibe of this book. And if you want to be disturbed and intellectually shaken, this one hits you right across your face with a tight slap and then dares you to say thank you by parts. A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. The course of true love never did run smooth. Whenever I talk about a Shakespeare, people get mad at me because they think it's not easily accessible, especially if English is not their first language. And I mean, I don't have a degree in literature as well. I'm a marketing girly, but I did find this book very accessible for some reason. I mean, Shakespeare writes like he's high. It's love on acid. It's lovers chasing each other through enchanted forest. Identity switching, affection misfiring. It's chaos, but it's also funny and kind. It's one of the rare plays where no one dies and where love wins, not because it's perfect, but because it refuses to give up. But beneath all this whimsy, Shakespeare is asking this very serious question, and that is, what if our foolishness is the thing that makes us human? It's messy, yes, but it's also forgiving, and sometimes when life feels bleak, that is exactly the kind of magic we need. And I mean, if you decide to read this book, you can even impress people. You can just quote stuff from this, and they'll be like, wait, is that Shakespeare? And you can be like, yeah, dude, that's Shakespeare. Because, I mean, this is really good, okay? Just read the book. And that brings us to the end of this video. These are all the books I consider my favorite. What the fuck am I talking about? I should do a part 2. If you have read any of these books, just throw a random number like, hey, I've read 7 out of 13 books. And that's gonna be our version of a Spotify blend. And how cool is that? And that's all I'm going to yap for now. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you in the next video when I see you. And yeah, I should get going. Bye.